So we're in the sugya of mechasrei amana, whether a person gets a reputation of being unreliable. We're on Bava Metzia Mem Tes Amud Aleph. And we're going to redo the Gemara again. And as I said, Daniel, we're going to answer your question. Okay?
Which Daniel and which question?
You don't remember your question, Daniel Selig?
No.
It's been troubling me since Wednesday. Okay. So I see that you didn't really, you just threw it out off the cuff. We will review it. I
don't remember. You have to forgive me, Rabbi.
I will. I'll tell you. Let's start from the beginning.
Bava Metzia where?
Bava Metzia Mem Tes Amud Aleph. Okay? So the story starts 3 lines before it gets wide. I'm going to go through. We did most of this. I want to get through it quickly because there's still a lot to see. So Rav Kahana Yavule Zuzei Akitna, somebody gave money to Rav Kahana to buy cotton. L'sof Eiker Kitna, the price went up, also Lakamid, and therefore Rav Kahana wanted to back out of the deal. So he got money. There was no kinyan except for the money. Eiker Kitna, the price went up, also Lakamid, Rav Amarle, B'may Dinakti, V'may Nidakata Tazuze Havlahu. You have to give him the amount of cotton commensurate with the money, meaning if you got 10% of the money, you got to give him 10% of the cotton. The idach, but all the rest, dvarim ninu, it's only words. Right? The dvarim ein bahem mishum mechusrei amana. And words do not impute to you a person called mechusrei amana. Ditmar dvarim, Rav Amar ein bahem mechusrei amana. But there's a machlokas because Rabbi Yochanan Amar yesh bahem mishum mechusrei amana. So it's a machlokas Rabbi and Rabbi Yochanan whether when I say I'm going to do something, I am going to sell you the cotton just with words. Okay, just with words. So because I took 10% of the money, that's not words anymore. I took money. All right, if I wouldn't have taken any money, then it's only words, a commitment of words. Okay, but if I took money, so then the money is already more serious than just words. Okay, and therefore said Rav, that you don't have to, you're completely innocent for the 90%, but you have to deliver the cotton that you took money for. Otherwise, because you took the money. And there's a machlokas whether words alone is mechasrei amana. According to Rabbi Yochanan, you would be a mechusrei amana for the entire a batch of cotton. On that, the Gemara says meisvei. Meisvei, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, Ma Talmud Lomer, Hein Tzedek, Valo Hin Bichlal Efa. I made a mistake last time when I was explaining it to you. Efa is a big measure. Hin is a small measure of the same thing. In other words, it's like we would say liters and centiliters. Okay, we would say make sure that your liters are honest, or maybe we'll say make sure your pounds are honest and your ounces are honest. Okay, well, ounces are just ounces are part of pounds. So what's this double hin and ephah? Your yes should be honest. The lav shel chatzedek, and your no should be honest. Okay, and therefore the person who is not honest is violating this essay. So it sounds like there's a mechusar amana even with words alone, because it says you've got to keep your word. Basically, the Gemara now is understanding you got to keep your word. And Amar Abaya Hahu, no, that is pasuk is not talking about mechusrei amana. All it's doing is it's giving you a mitzvah's essay. Shelo yidaver echad bepevi echad belev. Says Rashi, what does that mean? And maybe this will remind Daniel of his question. Okay, where's the Rashi? Shelo yidaver echad bepevi. It's higher up. B'shashu omer hadibur lo yehi bedato l'shanot. Aval im nishtane hashar, if circumstances changed. When I said my words, I intended to keep my word. But la'achar zman, circumstances changed. V'hu chozer bo lefi shinui hashar, ein kan chisaron amana. Meaning the pasuk is teaching you that when you make a commitment, you have to intend to keep your commitment. You're not allowed to make a commitment with an intention to go back on your commitment. But if when you made the commitment, you intended to keep it, and circumstances changed, so then that's not a violation, and you're not even called B'chosrei Amana. Asks Daniel, at least you did on Wednesday. You still don't remember? What happened to Midvar Sheker Tirchak? Everybody remember the question? Well, what I need a pasuk to tell me that I have to, that when I say I'm going to do it, I can't say I'm going to do it knowing that, thinking I'm not going to do it. So that's a lie. That's sheker. Everybody remember the question? Anybody have an answer?
It still wasn't a davar sheker.
Because
For the same reason that Rashi said. When he said it was true. He was telling the truth. His davar was a davar emet.
But he intends not to keep his word. He said his word and he intended not to keep his word. That's what the Torah is prohibiting.
It's only in case that something changes.
No, the opposite, the exact opposite. If when I said it, I intended to keep it, and something changed and I didn't keep it, that's not a violation of hin tzedek and hin tzedek and lav tzedek. The violation, says Rashi, you're not reading the Rashi correct. B'shashu omer hadibur, the prohibition of lo yeh echad peh ve'echad belev is that when you say it, lo yeh b'daito l'shanos. Aval im nishtana hashar la'achar zman v'chol zo bo lefi shinui hashar ein kan chesaron amana. But the prohibition is I'm prohibited from saying I'm going to do it when I don't intend to fulfill it. That's what it means. Shelo yedaber echad bepeh ve'echad belev. That I'm not allowed to say one thing. And here, look at the Rashi. Maybe we should have done the previous Rashi. Ela she'ein shelcha v'lav. Kolomar kishata medaber hein olav hayem dvarecha ve'hatzdek otam shelo yidaber echad bepeh ve'echad belev. That when you say you're going to do something, you're not intending not to do it. That's the commandment. So I thought, Daniel, that's a great question. So if you said it, you intend not to fulfill it, why isn't that a violation of midvar sheker tircha? If you like the question, you may not like the answer so much. Okay? The answer is, sheker is I'm lying about what happened. Okay? But if when I say I'm going to do something, even though my plan is not to do it, there's no lie there. I haven't said a lie. Okay? In other words, I did not violate midvar sheker tircha. I violated, right, don't be an echad bepeh ve'echad belev. And if you were an echad bepeh ve'echad belev, that's a bad thing. But you can't say I'm a liar. I'm not a liar. All I said is I'm going to give you $100, and I had no intention of giving you $100.
Isn't that Geneva's das?
That's a different sugya. The only question we had here was whether, hold that question till the end of the sugya. Right now, we're only talking about whether it's a sheker when I say I'm going to do something, and I have no intention of doing it. Okay, the famous line from the politicians. Okay, I know you promised. I said I know I promised, but I didn't promise to keep my promise. Famous line of the politicians.
Yeah,
okay?
It may not be a lie because a lie, by definition, is in the past, but sheker could be in the future. It doesn't have to be in the past.
No, that's exactly wrong. The definition of sheker, when we talk about a shvuas sheker.
Yeah, okay.
A sheker is that I'm lying about something that happened. Okay?
Yeah, but it's hard to say that this isn't a problem because it's in the future instead of the past.
No, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. But it's a different problem. It's called echad bepeh ve'echad belev. Okay, that you're basically promising to do. You're saying one thing and you're intending to do another thing. That's the problem.
Okay,
that's exactly what the Gemara is saying here. Okay,
as long as it's a problem.
What I say?
So long as it's a problem.
It's definitely a problem. It's definitely a problem. There's a special pasuk to tell you that your hin and your lav have to be the same. We're going to see something very interesting. I don't know if you guys peeked yet at the sheet that I sent you, but there's a very interesting thought on the hein and the lav. We'll see it when we get to the sheet when we finish this. Okay. So therefore, where are we up to here? Right. Okay. So we tried to attack it by saying that there is a mechusar amana even when you don't intend. And he says no, that there's no mechusar amana if something changes. If something changes and the reason why you changed was because something changed, then it's not a mechusar amana. And the case that we had is that because the cotton got more expensive, he changed his mind. It's not mechusar amana according to Rav. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it is mechusar amana. You realize that. The simple understanding is that according to Rabbi Yochanan, it would have been mechusar amana, but it came to Rav, and Rav said no mechusrei amana because Rav says, right, the machlokas was devarim, words, creates mechusrei amana or doesn't. Okay, next.
Rabbi, so again, why is it not midbar sheker?
Because sheker is in the past. Sheker means I said something that was false. When I said I will give you $100, there was nothing false there. There was no falsehood. In my mind, I wasn't going to do it. And certainly when I don't do it, that becomes the mechusrei amana. But at the time that I said it, okay, one could interpret it that all I violated is the Torah said don't do it. Don't do it.
So if a person, if I'm not talking educationally now, whatever, if a parent tells his kid, I'm going to buy you this, right? Right?
Okay.
He's promising him he's going to buy. But he didn't mean to. He didn't mean to. Right? Bad education, right? But he didn't mean to, right? So isn't he over a sheker?
He's over this. He's violating hin tzedek, right? He's violating sheyeh hein shel chatzedek v'lav shel chatzedek. That's what he's violating.
Meaning lo teshakru is only about the past?
Yeah, apparently so. Certainly according to this Gemara.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Again, you're teaching the kid not to be honest. Let's just
obviously
the English word. It's not an honest thing when I know I'm not going to do it. I want to calm the kid down, and I just say I'll do this, I'll do X, Y, Z, and you have no intention to doing it. You're teaching the kid not to be honest.
Yeah,
but
I didn't. It's a bad example. I didn't mean that. Even in business, I promise you, I'm whatever. I'll be there for you, right? And you didn't mean it. You just want to wiggle the person out.
That's the violation of hin tzedek and lav hin shel chatzedek v'lav shel chatzedek. A lie is when you say about something that happened that it didn't happen, or something that it didn't happen that it happened. That's a lie. Okay.
I think it would be better to say that sheker shouldn't be translated as lie, because lie in English also means future. So sheker happens to be a Hebrew word that doesn't have a corresponding word in English of lying about the current state of things, right? We don't. The word sheker doesn't relate to intent. That's not what the Hebrew word means as the Gemara understands it.
I hear what you're saying. Let me ask you a question. I make a statement, okay? I will give you $100. Is it possible for that statement to be a lie? How could that statement be a lie if I say I will give you $100? It may turn into a lie in the future, but when I make that statement, you can't call it a lie.
Fine, but that's causing yourself to have to twist, to come up with a twisted example, because many people would disagree. They would say, no, it is a lie. Yours, like if you ask 10 people in the street, 10 honest people in the street, they'll all say it's a lie. If you're planning not to give the $100, that is a lie. So therefore, we don't have a reason to use that English word of lie to translate sheker. There's just no reason. It's not as Adam Barachov uses it.
Okay. Again, I'm not going to argue the point right now. Clearly, in halacha, the sheker is on the what happened. That you're saying something that when you say it, it's not true. When you say it, it's not true.
Like it's a term like edut sheker. Edut sheker is not about the future. Lo teshaker. That means don't speak about what exists as of today.
There is an idea, and it's used, is that when I make a shvua, I can be mishaker my shvua in the future if I violate it. But it has to wait till the future when I do the opposite of my shvua. Certainly when I make it, you can't call it a shvua sheker. Okay? Yeah. Okay.
Just on a very high level, there's a whole concept of this when you write contracts and you say the vendor shall do X or the product shall do this. And someone pointed out, like, the consequences of that only come later. Like, and what happens if it doesn't? Do you define that? Not for now, but.
Okay, very good. All right, let's move on. Okay. Okay, next, Meisvei. Rabbi Shimon, again, remember, we have a machlokas Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, whether Devarim are yesh behem mechusrei amana or not. That's the issue here. So Meisvei Rabbi Shimon Omer Afal Pisha Omer Talis Kona Dinner V'Zav V'Ein Dinner Zav Kona Talis Mikol Makom Kach Halacha Aval Omer Misha Para Me'anshe Dora Mabel Ve'anshe Dora Palaga Hu Ati Li Para Misha Eino Omer B'Diburo. So you see clearly that not living up to your words has very, very serious consequences. Okay. So in other words, you didn't make a kinyan, you gave money, and the money didn't make a kinyan. But if you don't follow through with it, you get a mishapara. But that's only words. At the end of the day, it was words. So you see clearly that words, that a failure to live up to your words has very serious consequences. It's a kashan rav. Okay? And the answer is tanoi. Really, it's a machlokas tanoim on the consequences of words. It's not. Remember, this was a machlokas till now between Rabbi Yochanan and Rav. Now we're going to turn it into a machlokas tanoim. Ma'aseh Rabbi Yochanan ben Yaseh Shomer Libno. It's a famous. Hopefully, if you guys you study Socher Sapolim, it's right there. Ma'aseh Rabbi Yochanan ben Yaseh Shomer Libno Tzevis Socher Lipolim. Halachu Posak Lahem Zonos. They promised to feed him. Okay, the contract includes lunch. Ukishaboy tel aviv amar lo oive bini afilo ata oselem kisura shlomo b'shaito lo yatzasi yedei chovasecha imahim. You promised them lunch. You could give them a 6-course banquet, and you will have not fulfilled the commitment. Shehem b'nei Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. So we're in big trouble because your words of promising to feed them, to fulfill that we have to give them a 6-course banquet, which of course I'm not going to do. Ella ad shelo yachilu b'melacha tzei ve'omer lehem amanat shein lechem alai elapat v'kitnis bilvad. You got to go back and renegotiate the deal before they start working. You got to renegotiate the deal that they can't have a claim for more than bread and water. Then we'll give them a nice sandwich. But if you say we're going to give them a meal, you're going to have to give them a banquet. Now that's the Ma'aseh. The son already promised a meal, right? So how could he have told him go and retract? What he wants to be a mechusar amana, right? Well, the father wants to be a mechusar amana. So you see that the words have no impact, no commitment whatsoever, because he can be choser. Okay, so let's see the Rashi. Let's see Rashi. Tanoi he de Ashkechan Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya de Poli. Okay, that Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya holds that words have no consequences because he told his son go be choser. Okay, Ma'aseh Rabbi Yochanan Mishnehi Basocher es Apolim Shetziv es beno lachzor betnao ad shelo yatchil hamalacha v'lifsuk lemizonos kalin. So how you see that there's no consequences for the words? Senses the Gemara, no, shiny, hasam. The Paulim gufayu, lo samcha da'atayu. The Paulim really never took seriously what the son was saying. It includes a meal. Why? My timer. Maybe yadi de alavu samach. The Paulim know that the son doesn't have that authority to promise a meal. Okay, says Rashi, lo samcha da'atayu al divrei haben. They never really took it seriously. They never really relied that that's actually going to be the deal. All right. So then, Freg the Gemara iachi. Oh, so then they didn't. If they didn't think that they didn't accept the fact that the son's commitment is a real commitment, so then afilu itchilu b'melacha nami. So why does it say that go get to them before they start work? Well, if they never took it seriously, then starting work shouldn't matter. Okay. So says the Gemara, no. Itchilu b'melacha. Amru Meimar Omar Kamei Deavua Benichale. Once they start work, they're assuming that the son must have told the father what he did, and there was no protest, and therefore, if they started working, they assume that the father agreed to whatever conditions the son made. Says Rashi, Meimar Omar Kamei Kvar Hodia Ma Posak Lanu Minisratze. Okay, so basically, we have no proof from there what the story is. That according to that teretz, it was the reason why the father could be choser after what the son said is because the workers didn't really rely on it. Okay, so says the Gemara Umiyamar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi that if they don't rely on it, you can be choser. Remember, Rabbi Yochanan is the one who says that dvarim yesh behem mishum mechus ramana, words alone. Okay, and you're telling me now that if you said words, but they didn't rely on you, then you can be choser. Umiyamar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi v'Amar Rabbi Bar Rav Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan Haomer lechavero matana ani noten lecha. I'm going to give you $100. I'm going to give you a present. Yochel lachzor bo. He can back out. Yachol. Pshita. Of course he could. Ella, what does it mean? Mutter lachzor. He's allowed to back out. So what do you see what Rabbi Yochanan said? Rabbi Yochanan seems to say that Dvarim ein lahem, that the Dvarim are not mishum chusrei amana. Because if it would be mutter, if it would be chusrei amana, it would be usher to do it. So it answers the Gemara an important distinction. Amar Papa, Moda Rabbi Yochanan b'matana mu'etes desamcha da'atayu. That Rabbi Yochanan, when he said that you're allowed to back out from promising a present, he was talking about a matana gedola, a huge present. You know what? I promise I'm going to give you $10,000. Nobody relies on that. All right? And he says, you know what? I'm going to give you $5. People rely on that. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, that will already be Mechutz Ramana. Let's see the Rashi. Very important Rashi's here. And Miyamar Rabbi Yochanan, let's go back to the Miyamar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi. Miyamar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi, Diyesh b'tvarim mishum chisoron amana. Now we're challenging the whole thesis of Rabbi Yochanan. Remember, Rabbi Yochanan and Rav argued whether Dvarim create Mechutz Ramana. And Rabbi Yochanan said it does. Rabbi Yochanan said that if I promise a present, Yachol Lachzor Bo. The Kashal on Yachol Pshita, the Holo Mosha, Vein Koch Bebeis L'Chufa, it means you can't force it. Elavada Al Korchacha, what must he have meant? Mutter Lachzor Bo. The Ka'amar, Mutter Lachzor Bo Ka'amar. He must have said you're allowed to. The Ashmi'inan, the Afilu Chisor and Amar Leka. If Rabbi Yochanan said you're allowed to be Choser, so then that can't include Mechutz Ramana. So we have a contradiction here between Rabbi Yochanan's. Right? What did Rabbi Yochanan say? It is Mechutz Ramana or it's not? Answers the Gemara, Moda Rabbi Yochanan b'matana mu'etes. When he said that you're allowed to be choser from a matana, he meant a matana gedola. But a matana mu'etes, she'ein muter lachzor. Why not? Mishum desamcha da'ate de mekabel adibure. When you promise something minor, the recipient assumed that it's going to happen, and then you're not allowed to back out. The guy you promised never really expected you to fulfill it, and therefore you can't back out. So right now at this point we have a machlokas Rav and Rabbi Yochanan, whether words are binding meaning there are consequences for not fulfilling your words. Are there consequences? Consequences going to be mechutzer amana. You'll get a reputation of being an unreliable person. Or no, words alone don't create unreliability. Okay? Till here, questions? So there's an interesting Tosfos here, and I think I also bring it on the sheet in the Piskei Harid. Yes. Okay, so you know what? Let's stop here. We'll see the Tosfos afterwards. If you don't mind, call up the sheet, the Piskei Harid al Bava Ba. Somehow or other it got chopped off when I cut and pasted. Okay, but it's obviously Piskei Harid al Bava Metziah Mem Tes Amud Aleph. You may want to fill that in if you have a printout. All right, so let's read the Piskei Harid.
Rabbi Karlinsky, are
Yes.
you going to address at any point how we sort of like we define our magdir, like matana mu'etes versus gedola? I mean, if you move away from matana and you start talking about things like, say, negotiating salaries, and it's at least starts out as an oral,
Okay, so
are you going to address that?
Doug, I'm not going to address it. The Tosfos Read and Tosfos are going to address it. The Piskei Harid and the Tosfos are going to address it.
Okay.
Okay, good. You asked good. You anticipated. Itmar, Piskei Harid. This is Tosfos Read. Piskei Halach. Itmar Dvarim Rav Amarim Bohem Mishum Mechutz Ramana Rav Yochanan Amar Yesh Mishum Mechutz Ramana Meisvei. He quotes the Gemara. We're going to run through it quickly. Meisvei Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ma Talmud Lomar V'hin Tzedek Halo Hin Bichlal Eifahu Eloshein Lav Shalcha Tzedek V'hin Shalcha Tzedek. By the way, you realize it's reversed here. In the Gemara, it says Hin Shalcha Tzedek V'Lav Shalcha Tzedek. That may be significant. Okay. Amar Abaye, Aisha lo yidaber echad bepeh ve'echad belev, and therefore it has nothing to do with Mechutz Ramana. Pirush. B'shosha Omer Hadibur lo yehi b'daito l'shanos. Aval im nishtana hashar li'achar zman, circumstances change. V'hu chozer bo lefi hashar ein kan chisoron amana. Okay. So therefore it's not relevant to our discussion, and therefore there's no Tanaitic source. Meisvei Rav Shmai Omer, Al Pisha Amru Talis Kona Dinar Zav, Vein Dinar Zav Kona Talis, Mikol Makom Ken Halacha. Aval Amr Mishapara Midora Mabul Midora Palaga, Umeanshe Zdom, Ve'amora, Hu Asid Lipara Mimishaino Ome Bediburo, Danose Benose Midvarim Lo Kana, Dachozer Bo Ein Ruach Chachamim Nocha He Menu. Okay, so again, what it says here is that I give money without a kinyan, I have to take a mishapara. That's a curse. And if it was only words, we still have ein ruach chachamim nochim. That's nose v'nosein b'dvarim. All we did is we had words between us. Lo kana, but a person who backs out ein ruach chachamim nochim, which sounds like mechusar amana. Upirish kashal rav diamar ein behem mishum mechusar amana v'ukma rav kitanoi. I'm sorry. It's apparently the Gemara understands that Ein Ruach Chachamim Nocha Himenu is less than Mechusar Amana. I'm sorry. The Gemara must understand that that's less than Mechusar Amana. Ein Ruach Chachamim Nocha Himenu. The rabbis aren't happy with you, but I don't get a reputation of being Mechusar Amana. And on that, the Gemara says, all right, the Kashal Rav the Amar Ein Bahem Mishum Ein Bahem Mishum. No, I'm sorry. I got it right the first time. I'm sorry. The Kashal Rav the Amar Ein Bahem Mishum Mechusar Amana. And this Gemara says that Ein Ruach Chachamim Nocha Himenu sounds like there are consequences, and Rav says there's no consequences for words alone. And on that the Gemara says Ukmei Rav Ketanoi. Really, it's a machlokas tanoim. What are the consequences of words alone? All right, Umiyam Rabbi. Okay, and now the Gemara goes. He's skipping Umiyam Rabbi Yochanan Hachi that there is mechusar almana for words. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan Omer LeChaver Matan and Yod Lecha Yochel Lachzerbo Yochel Pshita Ema Muter Lachzerbo. So you see that according to Rabbi Yochanan, there are no consequences for words because otherwise it would not be mutter. And it would not be mutter. Amar Papa Moder Rabbi Yochanan b'matana mu'etes de samchadaite. Okay. Umasha Amar mutter lachzerbo b'matana meruba ka'amar. Here's the answer to Doug's question. Umekach umemkar. What about when we're talking not about I promise to give you a present, but we're making a business deal? What is that? Says the Tosfos read, and we'll see it in Tosfos another dimension also. Mekach umemkar kimatana mu'etes dami. Why is that a matana mu'etes? Well, what's the point of a matana mu'etes? Why is there mechusar amana according to Rabbi Yochanan in a matana mu'etes? Because the recipient is somech das. The recipient assumes it's going to really happen. If it's a matana meruba, the recipient, mirtz Hashem, you give it to me. But a matana mu'etes, the recipient expects it to happen, and therefore there's mechusar amana. So anytime there's a business transaction, Doug, we're answering your question. Anytime there's a business transaction, that's equivalent with a matana mu'etes. Why is matana mu'etes significant? Because the recipient expects it to happen. And in a business transaction, each side expects it to happen. And therefore, anybody who backs out from a verbal business transaction, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is a mechusar amana. Okay? The lafikach amar yesh ben mishum mechusar amana. The kaimalan Rabbi Yochanan, halachic Rabbi Yochanan, and therefore we're going to see, and I'm hoping that we'll get to the Shulchan Aruch to see how we paskin in these kinds of things. Okay? But again, so now we can see the Tosfos. Okay? Now we'll see the Tosfos. A one-line Tosfos, but it's also alluding to what Doug asked. Moder Rabbi Yochanan b'matana mu'etes. The yoker. What happens if the price changed? We made a verbal commitment. I made a verbal commitment to do a deal, and the price changed. Says Tosfos, nami havi kimo matana mu'etes. Meaning that, again, remember, we're in Rabbi Yochanan here. So Rabbi Yochanan says that even if the price changes, it was a business deal. The guy expects you to follow through, and that's part of the risk in business deals. You made a promise; you're going to sell it to me for $1,000. The price changed, but you already made a commitment, so you're allowed to back out. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, you're a mechusar amana, okay? Because that's like a matana mu'etes, i.e., the other side expected you to carry through. Okay, all right. Questions? Otherwise, I want to jump to the fascinating Ben Yehoyada. There's on the sheet.
Rabbi, can you one more time make that jump from matana mu'etes to business deals? If we're talking about a business deal of $10 million, right? It's not a matana muetis, right?
No,
So
we're not. The opposite. When you make a business deal with somebody, do they expect you to follow through or they don't?
they expect you to follow through.
That's the definition of matana muetis, means that when I promise you $10, if I promise you $10,000, you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'll believe it when I see it, correct?
Right?
But if I promise you $5, you could rely that I'm going to do it. Matana muetis means that the recipient relies on that the words will be fulfilled. Every time, says Tosfos, and the Tosfos read, every time you have a business deal, both sides expect it to be followed through. That's why it's called, quote, matana muetis. Matana muetis doesn't mean it's a small amount of money. It means that the sides expect it to actually happen. Okay?
Right. Okay.
All right. Let's see. But we're going to continue on to the Gemara a little bit. But we've got to see this Ben Yehoyada. Okay? Okay? Because what does it say? It says that your yes has to be honest and your no has to be honest. Anybody hear the problem here? I understand why my yes has to be honest, right? I promise I'll sell you cotton for $10,000. But what do you mean my no has? No, I'm not selling. I'm not selling. I'm not allowed to change. I understand I'm not allowed to change my mind after I say I will, and now I say I won't. You relied on me, and I say I won't. But what about if I say no, I won't? I can't change my mind afterwards and say yes.
I promise I won't sell it to anybody else.
Wait, wait, you skipped the first half of the sentence.
We're doing a deal, and I promise not to sell it to anybody else.
So because you just twisted the words. You promise to sell to me. You don't need to say anymore. If you promise to sell to me, implicit in that is you can't sell it twice.
Yeah, unless you haven't paid for it or for some reason or the transaction hasn't been completed.
But if you, again, then you violated your hain. You didn't violate your lav. You violated the hain. The lav is included in the hain. It's the hain that was violated. And you're on the wrong track. I thought you were going to get on the right. I thought you might get on the right track. But look at the Ben Yoyadai. See, he had a real good sense of business. And I think Ephraim, as a real estate guy, you're going to appreciate it. Look what the Ben Yoyada says. It's on the sheet, right? We're talking here about business deals. So Bishlam Amrlo Limkor, the Amar Hain. Reuven comes to Shimon, I want to buy your house. And Shimon says yes. So then if Shimon doesn't sell it, it's a violation of Hain. Shesomach halokeh hal dvarav v'osa masha osa. When Shimon promised, right? When Shimon promised to sell the house, Reuven starts running around to do all the paperwork for a mortgage. And then all of a sudden, Shimon says no.
But if he says no, he could change his mind.
But that's what and changing his mind from saying yes.
Right.
He said, yes, I will sell. And then it's not Beseder if after he promised Reuven that he's going to sell, and Reuven gets started doing whatever he has to do, all of a sudden Shimon changes his mind and says no. That's a violation of Hain Shel Chatzedek.
Right, but the other way around it.
Let's follow inside before you ask questions. Shimon is not an honest guy. Im yachzor bo, if he backs out. Ach belav. Im omar lo limkor. Reuven wants to buy the house. And Shimon says, no, I'm not selling. Omar lav. So im acharka chozer bo v'omer hein? Mo asa kilkul v'omer tchila lav v'acharka hein? I understand when I promise to sell, and then I tell you I'm not selling. That's bad. That's detriment. That's damaging to you. But if I say I'm not selling, and then you want to buy, and I say no, I'm not selling, and then a week later I say, you know what, I am selling. That's bad. You wanted to buy, and eventually I said yes. So says the Ben Yehoyada, the nearly. All right, the mashkachas la. How do we find it? The osa hezek behechashu rotzel limkor. The omar shalo limkor. The achaka chazer ve'omar limkor. Meaning, he obviously, if a week later he says he really wanted to sell, but he's saying now I'm not going to sell. The hainu Reuven beso shachen l'Shimon. Reuven and Shimon are neighbors. The haya beso katan v'nafalu baliv noso. Okay, so Reuven's house falls down. Reuven has a little house, and his house fell down, and now he's going to rebuild. Achirgish sheshimon rotza limkor beso. But you know what? Before he rebuilds his house, He says, I heard Shimon is thinking about selling. So he goes to Shimon before he starts rebuilding his house. V'lechein kodem shabona, sho'al Shimon im ritzomcha limkor b'bayit, kidei she'kneu ve'archiv bo binyan beisi. If I'm already built, we have to rebuild my house, and I heard you want to sell, so I want to buy your house also, so that I can build all at once. So kihubis arev heitev im beiso shel Ruven. The Heishiv Shimon lav. Shimon said, no, I'm not selling. So ein birtzoni limkor klal. I'm not interested in selling. So that's a no. That's a lav. V'huchach Ruven livnos beiso. So Ruven had to rebuild his whole house. V'achar shabana binyan gam al hatzad shel beis Shimon. So Ruven rebuilt his house next door to Shimon. Chazer Shimon v'omar limkor. Now Shimon puts it out for sale. Uchrach Ruven liknoso. Achiv sid also binyan shabana mitzad beiso shel Shimon. That caused Ruven a loss because the no of Shimon when he was planning on selling caused Ruven a loss. Ki ata tzorich lakor binyanahu kedei la'arei beiso shel Shimon im beiso l'harchiv beiso bebeiso shel Shimon. He's got to knock down he built for nothing. Ve'al zeh halav she'amar b'tchila b'sheker shehu rotze limkor ve'amar lav. He really wanted to sell and he said, no, I'm not selling. V'zeh somach al dvarav. So Ruven relied on that. So sometimes a person could say no that causes the Ruven to rely, and the no is just as detrimental when you turned it to a hain as a hain when you turned it to a lav. So it's not just that your yes has to be a tzedek, and if you say yes, you got to follow through. But when you say no, it's a little bit of a different dynamic. But when you say no, you got to mean it. You can't say no when you didn't mean it to be no. Okay? And again, that's echad b'peh ve'echad b'leiv. Okay. I thought that was a very interesting Ben Yehoyada to supplement this. Okay? All right. Let's finish the Gemara, and then we'll see the Ayah Shachar. Okay, so the Gemara now, it's a little complicated. I could really skip it because it has to do with Mises and Trumas. You know what? Let's skip down to, you know what? The rest of it really has to do more with Misha Para. And, let's see the Nahu Gavra. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lines from the bottom. Let's pick up. There's another story. Okay, it's really not directly related. It's another point that we had when it goes back to our sugyas of Shomrim and responsibility of a shomer. But again, these sugyas, when we learn one sugya, there's so much interface between so many of the sugyas we've learned. So, Hahu Gavra, you see where I am, 9 lines from the bottom. Hahu Gavra, Diyoiv Zuze Ashum Shumi. Okay, so he gave money to buy sunflower seeds. I'm sorry, what's Shum Shmin is, what's the English?
Sesame seeds.
Sesame seeds. Thank you. I'm sorry. Sesame seeds. Okay. So Ugavar Diyev Zuzah Shum Shumi. L'sof Iker Shum Shumi. All right. And so he paid the guy money. Again, we'll go back to our first case. He paid $1,000 to buy a ton of sesame seeds. And then the price of sesame seeds went up. Remember, the buyer did not make a kinyan. He gave the money. And now the price went up, so the seller wants to back out. Hadrubahu, the Amrle, Leslan Shum Shumi. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have no sesame seeds to sell. I have no sesame seeds to sell because he didn't want to deliver the sesame seeds. Shkol Zuzcha. So please come and take your money back. Got to get all the details straight. So Reuven gives Shimon money for sesame seeds, and he gave him money, no kinyan. And Shimon now doesn't want to sell the sesame seeds. And he calls up Reuven and says, look, there's no sesame seeds. Please come and get your money. Freeze frame. So what have we got? We've got Reuven's money sitting in Shimon's house. But Shimon tells Reuven, come and get your money. Okay. Lo shakal zuze. And Reuven didn't come. And Ignuv. And the money was stolen. Again, so Reuven gave Shimon money for sesame seeds. Shimon says, I'm not selling sesame seeds. Come and get your money. Reuven didn't come to get the money, and it was stolen from Shimon. is he chayiv for gneva v'aved? Also, lekame de Rav Amar le Kivan de Amar lechashkol zuzcha v'lo shaklis. Once Shimon told you, come and get your money. Lo mi boy shomer sachar. For sure, you're not a shomer sachar. To lo havi, because it could be that if the deal was going to happen, then Shimon wants the money. But here Shimon doesn't want the money, so he has no benefit from the money. He's not allowed to use it. He has no benefit from it. So a shomer sachar, he's certainly not. He's not even a shomer chinam on the money, right? Because he said, "Come and get your money." So obviously, if he calls him up and says, "Come and get your money," and 5 minutes later it's stolen, then he may be responsible. We're obviously speaking where Ruvain. That's why it said lo shakal. All right, lo shaklis. Ruvain never came to get it, so Ruvain had time to get it and he didn't get it. So at that moment, Shimon's off the hook. Okay, and therefore Shimon is completely putter. Amru le Rabbanon le Rava. Wait a minute. Haboy le kibuli alei misha para. But wait a minute. Remember what happened. Reuven gave the money to Shimon. All right, so that's not dvarim. That's not words. Reuven actually gave the money. Okay, and now Shimon's refusing to sell. So I don't know whether Shimon might not be chayv to pay to be responsible for the geneva, but he certainly should get a misha para because he took money and he didn't deliver the goods. Amar lahu hachinami. You're right. He gets a misha para. We were only talking about whether he has to give back the money, but he gets a misha para. Okay. Okay. Let's turn the page. Okay, and one more case. One more case. It's right before the two dots. It starts with, again, we have another case about that where if you're told come and get the money and you didn't get it, you're not even a shomer china. You're nothing. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's at the two dots. No, I'm sorry. Where is it? Oh, where is it here? Oh, okay. It's the second to the wide line. It's the second line before it gets wide. Here's the story. All right, it's literally, I'm sorry, the last narrow line before it gets wide. Hahu gavra, diyoiv zuzi achamra. Okay, so again, remember, when a person gives money for a product, so even though it's not a kinyan, it creates a situation of mishapara. If you don't deliver the goods after you got the money and you give back the money, it's a mishapara. So Reuven gave Shimon money to buy wine. L'sof shama de kaboy leminseve deve parzuk rufilia. He heard that the king is sending his henchmen to expropriate everybody's wine. Again, so let's get this story. Reuven gave Shimon money to buy Shimon's wine. Okay? And now Reuven heard that if he takes the wine, he's going to lose it because the henchmen are going to come and take it away. So he calls up Shimon and says, deal is off. The deal is off. Omar le havli zuzi, give me back my money. Lo bo'ina chamra. I don't want them. I don't want the wine. Give me back my money. Deal off. Also the kami de Rav Chizda, Omar le kederech shetiknu meshicha b'mochrin. Just like for the benefit of the buyer, we say that you need Mashiach before you own it, okay? So that the seller retains responsibility. Here it's to the benefit of the buyer that he doesn't own it yet. Normally it's to the benefit of the seller. I'm sorry. No, I've got it backwards. Normally it's to the benefit of the buyer that until he makes Mashiach, he doesn't own it so that if something happens, okay? But because of that, the seller can always be choser. That was the whole idea that if the buyer doesn't make Mashiach, the seller can be choser. Here, if the buyer didn't make Mashiach, the buyer can be choser. Usually it's for the benefit of it's to protect the buyer. But here the buyer wants to be choser, and we say yes, the buyer can be choser. Okay, says Rashi, just the last Rashi before the Mishnah. Kiderach shetiknu Mashiach lachzor bo hamocher kol zman shelo moshach halokeach. The seller can always back out if the buyer didn't make Mashiach. Remember, and that means because of the price change. Why would a seller want to back out? The seller would want to back out because the price changed. And we allow the seller to back out because of price change as long as the buyer didn't make Mashiach. But guess what? In this case, it's to the seller's advantage to back out. I'm sorry, it's the buyer's advantage. So the lack of Mashiach is always to the seller's advantage. He can back out if the price changes. But here it's to the buyer's advantage to back out. And the buyer can also back out. Okay? The buyer can also back out. We'll see in the Shulchan Aruch whether there's going to be a Mishapara in this case or not. There's a Meiri. You know what? Let me read you the Meiri. I didn't have a chance. I found the Meiri after I sent the sheet out, so I'll just read you the Meiri. It's a 2-line Meiri. Basically, the issue is, will there be a Mishapara here? Will there be a Mishapara? Remember, Ruvain gave money to Shimon for the wine. So if Shimon's going to back out, Shimon's going to get a Mishapara. Does Reuben get a Mishapara here? Because he's not taking the product? And the other mitigating factor is he's backing out because of very, very extreme circumstances. Okay, the Goyim are coming to take it away. So listen to the Meiri. I'll just read it to you. Kvar be'arnu lemala shekol shechazar machmas ones ein bo mishapara. V'hu ha'inyan shelo huzkar mishapara b'maisa shel parzak rufilia. There's no mention here of mishapara. Why not? Because it was an onus. Kamosha kasabnu lemala. V'yireh she'af chisaron dvarim ein bo. Not only isn't there a mishapara here, but there isn't even a mechusar amana on the buyer when the buyer wants to back out because of the onus that's happening here. Meaning the onus has to come from goyim. If the onus was price change, then you're going to get a mechusar amana. But when it's because of the goyim are attacking you or goyim are going to take it away, then he wants to say that that's not even a mechusar amana. What's the comment? Oh, I
just posted in case anybody wants it.
Anyway, that's the Meiri. Let's see. Go back to the sheet now to summarize the sugya. There's an Ayelet HaShachar again on Bava Metzia. Okay, and now he's going to go a higher level. So remember, we're talking here about a Mishapara, which is very serious. We're talking here about a Mechusar Amana. What about if the circumstances were that there's no Mechusar Amana? Are there any consequences? Says the Ayelet HaShachar. Dvarim ein behem mishum mechusar amana. Ephraim, pay attention because you're going to love this one. Okay? Yesh la'ayanim lidvarim yesh midas chasidus lekayem diburo. Okay, so there's no mishapara and there's no mechusar amana. But is there a midas chasidus b'chol zot to fulfill what you said? The sof gorem lo tochelet nichzava olo. At the end of the day, I'm causing the other guy disappointment. V'hine b'hada se'ata d'shmaya b'seir d'orm d'Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya Amar lachzor mimasha yivtiach lepoalim latet lem suda tova. Right, we have the Gemara about Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya. He told his son, quickly run and undo what you promised them. Mishum d'dvarim ein behem mishum mechusrei amana. Okay, in other words, he had no problem telling his son, go back, because he held that the polim are not somech and it's not mechusrei amana. Ve'imim idis chasidus hu lo lachzor ki yiyeh lasheni tarumas alav de gorim lo tsar in ken lama rotza lachzor. If there would be a midas chasidus, so then Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya never would have told his son to go be choser because he was a chassid. He never would have violated midas chasidus. The gam hola maskana Rav al korchach yizbor Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya the rotza lachzor hu machmas de dvarim ein ben mishum mechusrei amana. Harigami midas chasidus ein bezeh. He wants to prove from the story of Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya that it's not even midas chasidus, because if it was midas chasidus, then Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya would not have told his son to go. The amru li the sefer pri Yitzchak masik l'didon derak mi matana mu'etes asur lachzor mikol makom gam mi matana meruba yesh midas chasidus shelo yachzor bo. He wants to say that again. Rabbi Yochanan said a matana mu'etes, you're committed. There's mechusar amana. The guy was relying on you. Matana meruba. All right, I promised you $10,000. You weren't somech on me, but you know what? It's midas chasidus to fulfill it. Because at the end of the day, you weren't relying on me. But are you going to be disappointed? You're going to be disappointed. The tzarchian de lafi zeh mistavra who adin leman de omer the tamid ein bahem mishum mechusar amana mikol makom midas chasidus ulo datzor. Vim kain ech So again, it seems to be from the Maisa that it's not a Midas Chasidus, and yet we had the Pri Yitzchak that said it's a Midas Chasidus. Okay, so when we're going to get this, that's already. I don't. You know what? Did you guys have the Shulchan Aruch? It's a very quick Shulchan Aruch. I think we probably have time for the Shulchan Aruch because it's just a quick couple of simanim. We're talking about real Shulchan Aruch in 5 minutes. It's a real Shulchan Aruch, not the tour, and it's Kuf Dalet. Well, what did I do here? Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I said Kuf Dalet. That's not Kuf Dalet. It's Reish Dalet. I'm sorry. I knew something. I got the wrong. It's Reish Dalet. We're going to see this halacha l'maisa. So Reish Dalet, we need three seifim in Reish Dalet. Okay, we're going to see Vav Zayin and Tes. Okay, I'll give everybody a chance to get it. Reish Dalet, Seif Vav. Okay, there's not a lot of no sekelim. It's just basically the straightforward Shulchan Aruch. Machar lo bidvarim bilvad. I see people. Let me give it to people another minute to just find the page. Okay, Reish Dalet, Seif Vav. So Machar lo bidvarim, meaning they made an agreement to sell. Upasku adamit, and they decided on a price. V'rasham halokeach roshem al hamekach. The buyer even wrote a note. He's buying it. Kidei shielo simin yadua shu shalo. All right, he wrote something. Maybe he put he attached a sign to the goods. Afal pi shelo nosan mehadamim klum kol achozer bo achar sherosham mekabel mishapara. Oh, so this is without giving money. But if I did something concrete on the object that's being sold, or he attached his name to it or something, that's already a mishapar. The minag medina hu sheyikne haroshem kinyan gomor nikne hamekach. Okay, this is the idea of a situmta. If the practice is that when you attach your nameplate to the object, that's a kinyan in the secular law, then it's a kinyan. Obviously, it has to be that the mocher told him to do it. All right, if we made a verbal agreement and without me telling you, I went and I stuck my name on it, that's not a king. Okay, next. Hanosein the nosan b'dvarim bilvad. We're negotiating and we come to a verbal agreement. Harei ze roi lo lamod b'diburo. Even if no money changed hands, it's appropriate that both sides live up to the verbal agreement. V'lo rasham v'lo iniach mashkon. Nothing happened except words. V'chol achozer bo bein alokeach bein mocher afal pi she'eno chayev lekabel mishapara, because no money changed hands. Harei ze mi mechusrei amana ve'in ruach hachamim nocha himen. So this is already a lower level, but it's very inappropriate behavior. Next, Misha Omer lachaveru litin lo matana v'lo nasa. Reuven promises to give Shimon a present, and he didn't give it. It's not a business deal; it's a unilateral present. That also is mechus ramana. But we have the distinction in the Gemara. Since the recipient relied on the fact that he's going to get it, okay, you know, I'm going to send you over a pizza for your birthday. You're going to rely on that, okay? Aval b'matana meruba ein b'chisoron amana shaharei lo hemin zeh sheyitin lo dvarim. I said, you know what? I'm going to buy you a computer for your birthday. You know, I mean, maybe my kid would assume I'm going to do it, but certainly my neighbor wouldn't. Okay? Okay?
Doesn't it depend on who's making the promise? Like if it's someone who's extremely wealthy and he says, I'm going to give you something of cost. So like there, you might say, I was sure he's going to do it because relative to the person's means.
So you'll like the next Seif, David. I wasn't going to do it, but since you asked the question, we'll do Seif Tess also. Yesh Misha Omer, she'im Rabbeim Amru le'adam echad litin lo matana, einam yecholim lachzor bahem afilu im hi matana meruba. Again, probably because when a large group of people promise you, even if it's a big present, if it's a big group, you rely on the fact that they're going to deliver the goods. So therefore, I think, David, in your case, one could go out on a limb and say, yes, if a fabulously wealthy person promises you a very expensive gift, as long as there's some shaykhus between you, then it's not unreasonable for you to rely on it. And therefore, it could be mechus ramana from the very wealthy person. That is a possibility. Again, it seems like that would be implied in Sif Tes. Okay, Rabbosai, we're basically finished with this sugya. Next time, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to that very controversial Asisa Yasher V'Hatov in the Aveda, returning in Aveda. And I think we're pretty much ready to start Kofit al Midas Dom, which is a very complicated sugya. Right? Is that what, I mean, everybody is good that we should talk about Kofit al Midas Dom, which is very, very... it's not. Where does it come from? It doesn't. Rav Asher Weiss wants to say it's Asisa Yasher V'Hatov. I'm not sure that b'mechilas kvodo and ani hakatan. But he has. Maybe I'll send the article if you guys want to see all the sources. He basically ties 4 different things together and says all of them come from Asisa Yasher V'Hatov. One of them, I think we have the way we learned the Gemara. Certainly not Asisa Yasher V'Hatov. It's much more fundamental. All right, Asisa Yasher V'Hatov is a very amorphous kind of a thing. All right, but we're going to start. We'll see the Aveda, returning Aveda, and then we'll go over to Kofit al Midas Dom. I'll send you out sources, and we'll get started with it. One of the Gemaras, the first Gemara we're going to see where the Torah is very complicated about where. Remember, we have to find the places in the Gemara where it says Kofit al Midas Dom. So we did see it when we had the brothers who inherited, and one brother wants his field adjacent to his existing field. Right? Remember the guy who bought a field next to his father's estate? And now we want to divide the estate 3 ways. And the brother who has adjacency says, I want that part. And the other brother, opinion was Kofin al Midas Dom. And the other opinion was, no, we can be Malil Kibar Merion. So there are only a couple of places. We're going to see all the places in Shas where it actually says explicitly Kofin al Midas Dom and see how we apply it. Okay, but that'll be for next time. But first we're going to do the Aveda Sugya. And I'll send you out more sources. Okay, everybody, see everybody Wednesday, Kol Tuv.